why did you decide to teach supply chain management? And going back to your favorite mode of transportation, which is sea, why do you like the ocean so much?
Oh, I'll start with the first question. Why supply chain management? When I was getting my MBA, I thought I wanted to be an MIS person because I had done a lot of computer science in college.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really love the class that I took in that subject, but I loved operations management, production operations, and so forth. Back then, supply chain, nobody ever heard that word. Nobody ever said that word. It was prior to supply chain management. So when I went to go be an actual operations manager, I realized there were so many other factors than what was happening on the factory floor that influenced my ability to be productive and have a good workshop. So when I went to Purdue to get my doctorate and figure out what I didn't know back when I was a manager, supply chain was a brand new term. And so I immediately transitioned right into supply chain management. This is the bigger story. This is the bigger umbrella context for the smaller piece of it I was doing as a master's student and later as a operations manager. So what I love about supply chain is that it really does deal with the product, not just from what we saw today in the building of it, which is more manufacturing, but from the sourcing of the components, from the sourcing of the raw materials that went into making the components, in all their many guises and splendor, through the manufacturing process to the distribution and delivery, all the way to the product's end of life, and what do you do with the product when the customer's done with it? What we call cradle to grave. That's what I love about it.
Wow, I think that's so amazing. Specifically the beginning and the end. I never knew that was a way to phrase it like that, but it just sounds so neatly tied together, and sort of like with the product life cycle from beginning to end. And case in point, another way to view it, it's the lead up to Christmas. All the children want their toys, and they got to deal with the bullwhip effect.
Right.
But case in point, now I want to ask you, why the ocean?
Why the ocean? I love the ocean. I've always kind of dreamed of having a boat and being on the water. I don't have a boat and I'm not on the water, but it's still one of those sort of background kind of things that I always would love to do. And so I sort of transfer that onto my professional life I love the big boats. I love seeing them on the ocean. I love seeing how they move so much cargo with so comparatively little resources.
Do you ever get to drive down to the coast?
I do. I don't live very far from kind of the boat docks, the container port down in Kima. So occasionally I'll drive by it just to see the containers being moved around by the big cranes.
I love that because sometimes I love to have an excuse to drive down to the coast, but specifically I'll drive down the Surfside, and it's near all the petrochemical plants.
Right.
But from the fishing pier, you can actually see the big cargo ships coming in and out of the port.
See a big line of them in the horizon.
Yeah. And even late at night, you'll see the stars, but then out, if you look into the Gulf, you'll see the refineries as well. With the ships, and it really astounds me that there's millions upon millions upon millions of pounds of cargo that are just floating at any point or any given time in the world. And stuff like this Lego set probably arrived all the way from some manufacturing facility in China, and here we are building it and having a good time.
It's an incredible system, and you're right, it does kind of boggle the imagination when you start to try to contain it all in your head. It really is huge.
I like what you did there with the content. That was good. That was really good. Okay, I have to ask you something difficult.
Okay.
Just like that model ship that you brought in earlier, sometimes we encounter rough waters. And I think that the state of higher education is, in a way, encountering their own rough waters. So, with respect, some of this generation feels that they have lost that trust that college is worth it. With respect, I want to ask you, how do you restore that trust in the general public and in the next generation that is coming up, that college is still worth it?
Yeah, the operative words you have, I think, are worth it. You said it a couple of times, and I think it's spot on. College for today's student is really about a value proposition. It's different from generations past. When my parents went to college, it wasn't necessarily about a value proposition. It was a thing that you did as the next stage of your life and your development. Today's student doesn't feel that way. Today's student is looking for the reason why I should do this for 4 years of my time instead of doing something else that might seem more productive in the moment. So we have to, as universities broadly, but as UHD specifically, and in DCOB even more specifically, we have to be very clear about what our value to students is, and we have to make that value apparent to them every step of the way through the process. So we work very hard to ensure that as students come in, they are engaging immediately with career centers. They're engaging immediately with opportunities to be interns and to apply their knowledge and to generate expertise and employability right out of the gate. And we know that when students do that, when we are successful helping students to do that, they will leave the university with usually multiple job offers, and they will move immediately into a career that is far more lucrative than the one that they were using to pay the bills while they were in college. The statistics show this nationwide, by the way, but our experience here in the college shows us as well. And we are in the job of changing lives. I said that multiple times earlier in this interview, but what we most often mean by that is that we're enabling socioeconomic mobility, which is part of our university's strategic plan and part of its mission, is enabling socioeconomic mobility. And that means unlocking career potential, earning potential for real wealth, sometimes generational wealth, that simply would not be possible without what we do for the student, what the student brings with them on the way in. So that we feel is our mission, and some of, I think, the challenge higher education has in terms of the value proposition is that, not every school is UHD. Not every school is just about the most affordable state school in a large state like Texas. Some of them are private institutions who cost $40 or $50 or $60,000 a year. And if your work at that time doesn't translate to a job that earns enough to justify what you spent, then the value proposition becomes really kind of hard to understand. I think that we're in a different space for that, but we're still kind of painted with the same brush as an institution of higher education. So I think the value proposition is very much there. Our students' earning potential rises sharply during their time here, but part of it is a messaging issue. We need to make sure that message is clear, and we need to continue to deliver on what we deliver on for that value proposition.
And in terms of increasing that value proposition, what are some scholarships available to lessen the burden of paying for college?
Yeah, we do have a number of scholarships available. In the past, honestly, one of our big challenges was getting enough students to apply to scholarships, that we would have enough students to fill all the scholarships that we had. We've done a lot of work in the last couple of years to turn that around, and I'm happy to say we have a record number of students applying for scholarships. The last I heard, it was well over 400 students applying for scholarships, which is fantastic. We have our kind of splashiest scholarship that we're kind of most excited about is the Ted Bauer Undergraduate Business Scholarship. It's for undergraduate students in their final 2 years, which many of our students are. They come from community college, they arrive on campus, they have 2 years to go. If they qualify for this, they get their tuition and fees entirely paid for. We have, right now, for the coming year, 45 of those that we're handing out, which is just a tremendous benefit, life-changing benefit for those. But even without naming that one, we have several dozen other scholarships that students can apply for and get, will defray some significant portion of the cost of attending.
To follow up on that, I think that one thing that I think speaks to a lot of people in terms of the value proposition is not going directly to a four-year institution from the beginning, straight out of high school. Mm-hmm. Maybe taking some time to reflect, seeing what that career path is for you, starting off at the community college level. I understand we have some relationships with community colleges and in the area. Can you speak a little bit about transfer students and how they play into, for example, the scholarship you just mentioned?
Sure. We love our transfer students. We love our partners in the community colleges. We have three major ones, and they are are wonderful. They do a good job of getting students from high school to graduation to ready to engage in our majors here at the Maryland Davies College of Business. Those students, by the way, we have roughly 80 to 85% of our undergraduates in any given moment are transfer students from one of those institutions. So we really feel those relationships are crucial to who we have been, who we are, and who we're going to be in the future. Those students are fully eligible for every one of the scholarships I just mentioned. In fact, those full scholarship, if you will, Ted Bauer undergraduate scholarships are fully available to transfer students, and we encourage them to take advantage.
As someone who's a community college graduate, that really speaks to me in terms of like the figure that you mentioned, 85%. And the thing is, more often than not, you won't find that out unless you talk to your other students. But it sounds like you also incorporate data analytics into your decision making. I know it's not something that I planned on asking you, but how do you employ data analytics in terms of like the decision making that you make at the college with your team?
Yeah, it's a good question, and we try to increasingly be conscious of data, be data driven, as I say, in our decision making. We look at what students are enrolling in. We look at what they're not enrolling in. We look at the data from other institutions that are publicly available to help us make decisions about what different degrees or certifications we might offer. We try increasingly to understand students in their experience through data as much as possible, because while stories are good, anecdotes are great, you get to understand the lives of individual students. If you want to affect broad change to what you're doing, and that applies to us, we have about 5,600 students in the college. We're a large college of business. You need to look at the data. Mm-hmm. So yes, we actually employ a full-time data analyst in the college for that purpose, so that when we have a question that speaks to lots of data points on that 5,600 students, we don't want to make decisions that fail to account for the experience of students broadly.
I always think back to that cover of Business Week. There was a famous American CEO at the time. His name was Bernard Evers. It was the height of the dot-com era. And I remember the headline on that cover of Business Week was the Cowboy CEO. This idea that from a leadership perspective, you're not making necessarily decisions based on data points, but more on emotion, mm-hmm. on your persona. And, obviously at one point, the bubble burst. And that's what happened with the dot-com era. So this idea that data-driven analytics is helping make those decision points and supporting those points of view, mm-hmm. I feel that's what's creating that solid approach, and essentially, drives that model that is student-centered, but at the same time, gives the substance to back it up.
Yeah, I agree, and I would say to qualify, I think data-driven decision-making and data analytics are one form of, principled analytical decision-making. It's not the only form. You can be analytical in non-data driven ways, and sometimes those are good ways to evaluate qualitative data or other kinds of the more emotional side of how do we make marketing and advertising often get into this, right? We have our hardcore data, and when we have our data about what people love and care about, and how do we meld those two into a decision that accounts for all. So
all those things coming together.
All those things, but not someone's pet project because they're the cowboy CEO and they want what they want, right? I mean, that's kind of what you're getting at.
No, there's no big personality driving it. It's a team effort, and it's
right.
driven by the numbers. And that idea of the cowboy CEO has gone off into the distance.
With some notable public exceptions in the world.
That is true. That is true. A little bit more cybery.
Right, exactly.
The cyber CEO. Okay, so I have to ask you. We're right off of I-10.
Right.
We're considered a commuter school. We're at the heart of downtown. There's a rail station that connects our main building, and then we have a line of bio waterways that connects us through trails. But the one challenge with commuter schools is how do you create that sense of community and belonging? And that's my question to you. How do you plan to build a stronger sense of community and belonging here at MDCOB?
Well, specifically when the college is a different question than the university. We're going to lean on, I think, a lot of what the university does, and the university is looking on lots of projects to do that. The campus master plan has already begun to build some things. For example, the new student wellness center, I think, is going to be this locus for student engagement. Even though we are rightly defined at this point as a commuter campus, the idea is to create spaces for students to arrive on the campus and linger, right? They together, right? Where they build things, they talk, they have ideas, they share them, they refine them, they build relationships. That's what the campus experience and the positive feeling you're talking about, that's how it's cashed out, right? When I was an undergraduate, I got that feeling because I lived on campus all the time. I wasn't living in a dorm as a student, so it was sort of natural for me to feel like I lived and belonged there. The community that I was developing was also living and belonging there, and so it sort of, that sense that you're talking about sort of fell out of the circumstances. Since we don't have that, we've got to create those opportunities here. One of those is, I think we do an amazing job of in this college, are our student organizations that just, they knock it out of the park in so many ways. But they are that opportunity in one sense on campus for students to come together periodically, build relationships, linger in the space, and kind of build that community that you're talking about. It can't be the only thing. We have to have other ways for students to do that, and we're attempting to have more speaker series coming up, right? So years and years ago, pre-pandemic, we had those where we invite luminaries on campus for students to congregate, hear them speak, and then have a session where they can meet the person and talk. Panel sessions, we want to get alumni back onto campus with those same kinds of things so that they can connect with the students and begin to build sort of that expectation of re-arriving on campus, because this is the space where your life changed. That's how I felt about my undergraduate institution. That's how I want our students who graduate from here to feel about UHD.
I think that's the perfect segue to ask you about our student orgs on campus. I want to ask you, why should students get involved with these student orgs, and what are the benefits of joining?
So again, it is one of the primary ways of meeting and forming relationships with your colleagues, your fellow students. Student orgs do multiple things. They do that, but they also connect you with the industry that you expect to start a career in. And how, just as we want to make sure that students are beginning to get internships and engage with the Career Center early on, not just as seniors, not even juniors, but also sophomores and freshmen, student orgs can help play that role as well, because they get you in contact with the local chapters of the professional organizations at the professional level. Usually there's an affiliation there. Students can make personal connections with people who are in positions of power in those organizations, and those pay dividends for years to come in all kinds of ways, personally as well as professionally. So I think student orgs here in the college have a really amazing role to play in the life of the student if the student will just take advantage of it. That's a theme. I can tell you when I was a student, an undergraduate, looking back, there were so many opportunities that I should have taken advantage of that I didn't think I needed to, or didn't know about it, or all kinds of reasons why I didn't engage with that. And I think students would do well to take a survey of what steps make the most sense in getting them from 0 to 100 in their career, and student orgs are part of it.
I have to ask you, whenever you were undergraduate Dr. Dean Davies,
right?
Did you ever belong to a student org, or were you involved on campus?
I was very involved. So I was in music education in high school, played the sousaphone. And when I got into college, I said, well, the one thing I know I can do is I can play the sousaphone. So I joined the college band and was on the marching band and was at all the football games for all the time I was there. And that was my big involvement. And just as I was saying, that involvement in that student organization is really what helped me build quickly community and frankly lifetime friends that I expect to have forever. So
I have to ask you, so the sousaphone, that's sort of like the tuba that you march with.
Correct.
So
it's the one that wraps around you and has the big forward-facing belt.
So I have to ask, in the lead up to this interview today, I asked for you to bring your favorite Lego model. Perhaps I just should have asked you to bring your sousaphone. I have my saxophone with me.
I actually have a sousaphone now. Yeah. So my university had the band was replacing all their sousaphones, and they had a big fire sale that said, hey, if anybody, they went out to the alumni and said, if anybody wants a beat up sousaphone that we've been using for 20 years, you could have it for just a few $100s. So
you could say you got a good deal on that sousaphone.
I think I did, yeah.
Does it live in the attic? Does it live in the garage?
No, it lives right in the living room. Yeah, upstairs. It's got a place of pride.
So we're coming up on almost the end of the interview, but I think I just want to hit on one more important part of our college's community that you might be able to speak on. And I think that's our Career Center. Tell us about the Career Center and some of the resources available for students at MDCOB through that Career Center.
Great question. Everybody who visits our school from outside other institutions will come and see what we do. They rave about our Career Center. And we're very fortunate as a college of business to have our own Career Center dedicated to our own students, master students as well as undergraduate students, who they're fantastic. They will meet with you anytime. They work directly with our hiring managers throughout the community. They will set up relationships with them. They'll post jobs. They'll help students prep for interviews. They'll take your resume and turn it into something that hiring managers want to see. They have their finger on the pulse of the community and what kinds of jobs are hot now, and they can advise students in all kinds of ways. So, I'd say probably 7 out of 10 times when I'm talking to a student, I'll ask them, so have you talked to the Career Center yet?
Mm-hmm.
Because I believe so much in the power of those people in that office to really positively impact the career prospects and therefore the life of our students. One challenge we've always had in the college since I've been here, it's less and less, but certainly when I first got here, is students undervalue themselves. There are lots of life and historical reasons for why a student might come in to the College of Business and come out of it and aim for a job lower than really they're qualified for. We want to get away from that. We want our students to graduate with our degrees in marketing, degrees in accounting, and we want them to go for those entry-level, high career ladder positions that we know they can do and they're qualified for. Not the lesser positions that someone with a high school diploma might even qualify for. So that's what the Career Center can do for our students, is help them aim high, help them position their resume to get where they know they can be.
Shout out Maxine Todd, Brett Hobby, Jacoby Aguilar, and the wonderful staff at the Career Center.
They're amazing.
They are. And, I think that ultimately sets up that conversation that they offer so many resources, but ultimately it's up to the student to take advantage of them. And that idea of imposter syndrome is something that I think is common throughout a lot of the interviews I've done throughout the last 2 seasons, but mostly the idea is that you're here and you belong in that room. It just takes a little bit of confidence and a little bit of help with that resume, with that LinkedIn profile, finding those right opportunities, and the rest is in your control.
Yeah, and those internships we talked about are very powerful tools for getting over that imposter syndrome. A student having the experience of going to work for one of those companies and learning what others around them know and can do, and what they know and can do in comparison to them, I think really does a lot of work in helping a student kind of conceive of their own potential in the way that we know they can and should.
Nice. Well, I have one last question for you. And I asked you to bring back your model of your container ship, which honestly, I'm not going to lie, it's held up pretty nicely. It looks nice. It has its cargo containers, and now you have this one to add on to it with your Lego Formula One and the photographer there. But in life, sometimes you're going to encounter choppy waters. Sometimes you'll be in rough seas and you'll want to enter the port, but the port's closed, and you're going to have to sit outside, and you're going to have to accumulate those demurrage fees.
Well, very good. I see what you're doing here. This is good.
Just quick aside, what is demurrage?
Demurrage fee is when you're charged by your supply chain management partner for some kind of a storage or holding on to some of your equipment for a period of time.
Fair enough. And with that being said, you're going to encounter difficulties, but I want to take you back to the very beginning, to undergraduate Dr. Dean Davis. Take us back to the very beginning. What advice would you give to your younger self, and what do you want to tell the students of today?
Oh, yeah. That's a great question. You know, I think the me of back then was overly concerned about the exact path. When you're that age, you're thinking about, you're making plans. You're doing nothing but making plans. I'm going to do this and this and this, and that'll get me here, right? You may have a 5-year window, you may have a 50-year window, but whatever it is, you've got this path in mind.
Yeah.
And I guess I would say to myself back then, let go of that a little bit. You're going to get where you're going to get in life, but it's not going to be a straight line. You're going to encounter things that you didn't expect, you didn't know about in advance, and it's going to help you find the things that you value in here better than you can possibly know right now, and just make space for that. Because I've seen people get laser focused on a particular path, and anything other than that seems like failure, when in fact the best thing for them to do in any given moment might be a little bit, might diverge. And they may end up back where they originally planned to go, but it might be some sort of different way to get there. Or it might be another place entirely that's even better and they don't know. So I think I would tell myself at that age to be less concerned about the precise path and more concerned about just building skills, learning about the world, finding out what you love and care about, and make space in your life to aim that way.
Wow, those are some very powerful words, and something to just wrap this interview on. Thank you so much for coming onto the show today, Dr. Dean Davis.
Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure to have you, and congratulations on being named as the new Dean of the Maryland Davies College of Business.
Thank you.
I'm very excited to see what the future holds for the college, and I know that the institution is in very well capable hands.
Thank you, and I'll say to you, congratulations to you as well on this being your last interview for us, because you're going on to greater and better things and a long career of success. I fully expect to hear someday your name with the word president next to it, doing something or another. That's kind of my expectation for you. So I'm laying it out there. I think you can handle the onus.
I'll give it the good old college try.
So to speak.
Well, Dean Davis, it's been a pleasure. I've been your host, Miguel Gomez. This has been Gator Bytes, the official podcast of the Maryland Davies College of Business. It's been a pleasure to host for these last 2 seasons, and I wish you the best. Good night, good luck, and don't forget to take a bite out of business, and we'll see you later, Gators.